My name is Grace, and I am the woman who walked into her own house and was treated like a stranger. I am 42, single, and I live in Denver, in the United States. For months, I had been dreaming of 3 quiet days at my beach house near San Diego. No emails, no favors, no family drama. Just sleep, sea air, and the small wooden place my aunt left to me alone. The house sits at the end of a sandy lane, with peeling white paint and a tiny porch. When Aunt Rose died, the lawyer told me the place was worth around $280,000. My hands shook as I signed the papers. Since then, I have paid every bill myself. The tax, the repairs, the $1,200 plumbing work when the pipes burst, the new fridge that swallowed $900 in one go. Whenever I start to feel useless, I remind myself that I keep a whole house, standing with my own money. That afternoon, as I drove off the main road toward the sea, I could feel my shoulders begin to relax. In my head, I had already planned my evening. I would unpack my one small suitcase, make a simple dinner, and walk down to the water until my thoughts slowed to the rhythm of the waves. When I parked by the fence and saw the light blue front door, I actually smiled. That door has always meant freedom to me. On one side of it, everybody wants something. On the other side, no one does. I was still smiling when I pushed it open. I had left it unlocked that morning in my rush to catch a work flight. I expected quiet. Instead, I walked into a wall of noise. The television blared from the living room. Children's feet thudded across the wooden floor. Voices overlapped in the kitchen. For a second, I froze on the threshold, certain that I must have stepped into the wrong house. Then my mother turned and saw me. "Grace," she said, sounding more surprised than pleased. She sat in my armchair with a blanket over her knees. My father was stretched out on the sofa, his shoes on my coffee table. My younger sister, Olivia, stood in the middle of the room with a glass of white wine in her hand. Her husband, Daniel, leaned in the kitchen doorway. Their children, Mia and Leo, were racing in circles with one of my cushions clutched between them like a ball. Olivia looked me up and down. I was still in my travel clothes, faded jeans, a creased gray shirt, flat shoes. My hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Her eyes moved slowly from my shoes to my face, as if she were checking the price of something on a shelf. Then she curled her lip and spoke in a clear voice meant for everyone in the room. "What is this old parasite doing here?" she said. "We don't have room for you." The word hit me like a slap. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then my father gave a short laugh. My mother's mouth twitched. Daniel smirked. Even Mia giggled, copying the adults without knowing why. I stood there holding my suitcase, thinking of every little extra. I had sent them over the years. $300 when their car broke down, $400 when they were behind on the mortgage, and understood, very clearly, that none of it had bought me any respect at all. "This is my house," I said at last. My voice shook. "I came here to rest." Olivia shrugged. "We booked the kids' break here weeks ago," she said. "You're always alone, Grace. Go back to Denver. You'll be fine." No one moved to make space for me. No one turned down the television. The message was simple. This place might be in my name, but I was not welcome in it. I felt the heat drain from my face, and something inside me go very still. Without another word, I turned, pulled my suitcase back over the threshold, and closed the blue door behind me as gently as if the house could feel it. Nobody followed. Nobody called my name. 7 hours later, after a cheap coffee in a noisy cafe, a slow walk along the darkening shore, and too much time staring at the shrinking numbers in my bank app, I found myself back on that sandy lane. The sky was almost black. My house glowed with warm yellow light that did not feel like it belonged to me anymore. A man stood by the fence in a worn brown jacket, watching the front door, as if he were waiting for it to move. When he saw me, he stiffened, then suddenly started running toward me. Before I could step back, he caught my hand, his grip warm and urgent. "Please," he said, breathing hard. "Only 3 days." The man's hand was warm around my cold fingers, and for a second all I could do was stare at him. He was tall, with dark hair that needed a cut, and a face that had seen too many long days. His brown jacket looked worn, but clean, the kind of thing people keep because it still does its job. His eyes were focused and serious, but not unkind. "Please," he said again, catching his breath. "Give me 3 days. That's all I'm asking." I pulled my hand back a little, not enough to break the contact, just enough to feel that I could. 7 hours earlier, my own family had treated me like a stray dog at their door. Now a stranger was holding my hand outside my own house, asking for time I did not think I had. 3 days for what? I asked. My voice came out flat. I was too tired for drama. "To help you," he said. "To stop them from taking this place over. To make sure you don't walk away from something that's yours." He nodded toward the house. The curtains were drawn, but I could see moving shadows, flashes of light from the television that had been blaring when I left. The sound of laughter floated faintly through the glass. My laughter once. "Not tonight." "Who are you?" I asked. "My name's Mark Taylor," he said. "I live over there." He pointed to a small gray bungalow 2 doors down the lane. "We've shared a trash collection for 3 years. You always bring my can in when I forget. You leave early on Mondays. You come alone, and you leave alone. I may not know you, but I've watched you." There was no creepiness in the way he said it. It sounded more like a quiet fact he had carried for a while. I felt my cheeks heat. "I didn't think anyone noticed me," I said. "I noticed," he answered simply. "And I also noticed your sister this afternoon. She was loud. She was saying things in the street that made my stomach turn." I swallowed. "What did she say?" "She told someone on the phone that they were finally going to get their hands on this house," he said. "That you are weak and lonely and always give in. That once your parents are settled, you'll be too guilty to ask them to leave." She laughed and said that in a couple of years no one will even remember whose name is on the papers because you'll have drifted off somewhere. The word stung, not because I did not believe them, but because they sounded exactly like Olivia. I could almost hear her voice in every line, smooth and sure, and certain she would win. "How do you know my name?" I asked. He gave a small grin. "You signed for one of my packages last year. The delivery guy shouted it across the yard by mistake. Grace Miller, right?" I remembered. My aunt was called Grace. There was a stillness between us for a moment. The sea roared softly in the distance. The house behind us hummed with a life that did not include me. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "I don't want to fight. I just wanted a few days of quiet. Now I have a hotel bill for $80, my savings are going down, and I feel like I lost my own front door." "That's why I'm asking for 3 days," Mark said. "My brother is a property lawyer in Los Angeles. He owes me more than one favor. I already called him when I heard your sister. He says if you let this go, if you act like a guest here, it can make things harder later if they try something smart with the law." I thought of Olivia's smug face. I thought of my parents' silence, my father's laugh when she called me a parasite. I thought of the $300 I had sent when their car broke, the $400 for the mortgage, and how quickly people forget the hands that held them up. "And what do I have to do?" I asked. "Stay," he said. "Stay nearby. Stay angry enough to act. Come to my place tonight instead of spending more money on that room. In the morning we call my brother together. We get your papers in order. We send your family a clear message in writing. 3 days is enough to build a wall of facts they can't laugh away." I hesitated. The idea of going home to Denver and pretending this weekend never happened pulled at me like a soft bed. But the thought of Olivia walking around my house, telling people it would soon be hers, was like a stone in my throat. "Why do you care so much?" I whispered. "Because this happened to my aunt," he said. "Her son pushed her out of her own apartment. Told her she was old and useless until she believed it. She died in a rented room while he sat in the place she had paid for. I didn't help her in time. I'm not making that mistake twice." His voice cracked just a little on the last word. That, more than anything, made my choice for me. I drew a long breath that tasted of salt and cold and something new. "Okay," I said at last. "You get 3 days." His shoulders dropped with relief. He let go of my hand slowly, as if afraid I might change my mind, then turned toward his bungalow and nodded for me to follow. As I walked beside him down the sandy lane, away from my own bright windows and the laughter that didn't need me, I felt a thin line of strength stretch out inside me, small but real, like the first crack of light under a closed door. Mark's bungalow was small and neat, with pale walls and simple furniture. It was the kind of place you can tell a person has built slowly, one paycheck at a time. He showed me the spare room, which was really a narrow office with a fold-out couch and a small window that looked toward the sea. There was a blanket folded on the arm and a stack of crime novels on the floor. "I know it's not a hotel," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "but it's free. And the coffee is decent. Stay here until we fix this. Please don't waste more money on that room." I thought of the $80 I had already spent, the numbers in my bank app drifting down. I thought of Mia and Leo jumping on my couch, of Olivia's cold eyes. The choice was not hard anymore. I put my suitcase beside the couch and nodded.
"Thank you," I said.
"I'll pay for food. I don't want to be a burden."
He shook his head.
"You're not a burden. You're a neighbor who needs help. I'll let you return the favor someday. That's enough." We ate simple pasta at his small kitchen table that night. I told him about Denver, my job at the insurance company, my quiet apartment with the thin walls. I told him about my parents' house in a suburb outside Phoenix, about how Olivia had always been the bright one, the pretty one, the one people watched when she walked into a room. I heard my own voice grow tighter when I spoke about the money I had sent over the years. Mark listened. He did not interrupt. He did not say things like "family is family" or "I'm sure they didn't mean it." When I finished, he only said, "They taught you to think you deserve very little. That's hard to unlearn, but you're going to start tonight." We called his brother the next morning. His name was Daniel too, but older, sharper, with a calm voice that carried through the speaker of Mark's phone. He asked for my full name, the address of the house, the date my aunt died, the name of the law firm that had handled her will. As I spoke, I felt like I was being pulled back into my own story, line by line. "Good," he said at last. "From what you've told me, the property is yours alone. Your aunt left it to you in full. Your parents and sister have no legal right to live there without your consent. They are guests. If you ask them to leave and they refuse, that is not a family matter anymore. It becomes a legal one." The words were simple, but they shook me. Guests. Not rulers. Not owners. Guests in a house I had been too afraid to claim. "What should I do now?" I asked. "First, we create a record," he said. "You will send them a calm message saying you were shocked by their behavior, that you came for time alone, and that you do not agree to them staying in the house against your will. Ask them to leave by a clear time and date. Keep every response they send. I'll draft a formal letter you can email and mail. We will make it very clear that you are the owner and that you do not give permission for them to remain." After the call, my hands were shaking. Mark put a mug of coffee in front of me and slid his own phone across the table. "Write the message now," he said. "Don't overthink it. Just tell the truth." It took me 3 tries. On the first one, I apologized too much. On the second, I sounded like I was begging. Mark read both drafts and raised an eyebrow. On the third, I wrote, "I came to the beach house for 3 days of rest. Instead, I was insulted and told there was no room for me in my own property. I do not agree to you staying there without my permission. I am asking you to leave the house by Sunday at 6 p.m. so I can use my home in peace." When I read it out loud, my voice wavered a little, but there was a new weight in it. "That's the one," Mark said. "Send it." I pressed send. The small whoosh of the message leaving felt louder than the waves outside. Within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed. My mother wrote first, a long message full of guilt and flowers. She talked about how expensive travel was, how excited the children had been, how I was being selfish and dramatic. She ended with, "We are family, Grace. Houses don't matter. People do." Then Olivia's message came in, short and sharp. "You're really going to throw your own parents out over 3 stupid nights at the beach? Try it." For a moment, the old feeling rose in me, the urge to back down, to say it was fine, to tell them to stay, and then cry alone somewhere else. But then I looked around Mark's small kitchen, at the clean mugs, the neat stack of bills by the fridge, the evidence of one man quietly carrying his own life. I remembered the sound of Olivia's voice calling me a parasite in front of her children. No more, I whispered, more to myself than to him.
Mark must have heard anyway.
He smiled, a quick, proud smile.
Day one, he said.
You've started. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had too. The next morning I woke to the sound of gulls and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I did not know where I was. The ceiling above me was not the one from my Denver apartment. The narrow room, the folded couch beneath me, the small square of sea visible through the window brought it all back in a rush. My family in my beach house. My message. Their replies. Mark's quiet promise. 3 days. I sat up and checked my phone. No new messages. No apology. No change of heart. It stung, but it also made something in me settle. They were not confused. They were not unaware of what they were doing. They had read my words and chosen to stand where they were. In the kitchen, Mark slid a mug toward me and nodded at the chair. My brother sent an email late last night, he said. He's drafted the formal letter. Do you want to read it now or after breakfast? I had always been the kind of person who waited, who put off the hard parts until the last possible moment. But today I heard myself say, now. We sat side by side at the small table while he opened the email on his laptop. The letter was simple and clear. It said that I, Grace Miller, was the sole legal owner of the property at the address of the beach house. It stated that my parents and sister were occupying it without my agreement and that I had asked them to leave by Sunday at 6 p.m. It warned that if they refused, I would consider legal steps and that any costs might be claimed from them later. Seeing my own name there, not in a pleading text thread but in firm black print, made my hands tremble. It was like seeing myself on the page for the first time. Do you agree with everything? Mark asked. Yes, I said. My voice surprised me. It sounded steadier than I felt. We printed the letter, and at his brother's suggestion, we also sent it by email. Then we walked to the small post office on the main street and mailed a hard copy, paying for track delivery. It cost just under $10. As the clerk stamped the envelope, I felt oddly light, as if a weight I had carried for years had shifted to rest on something stronger than my own back. Day 2 was about proof. On Daniel's advice, I called my bank and asked them to print statements showing the payments I had made for the beach house over the last 2 years. Tax, utilities, insurance, the repairs that had nearly emptied my savings twice. When the teller slid the stack of papers across the counter, my eyes caught on the numbers. In total, I had spent more than $3,800 keeping that house running since Aunt Rose died. I didn't realize it was that much, I said quietly. It adds up, the teller replied. Houses always do. Back at Mark's, we put the statements in a folder with the letter. He wrote dates in neat handwriting on yellow sticky notes and attached them to the front of each section. Watching him do it, I thought of how Olivia would have rolled her eyes and called me dramatic if I had suggested anything similar. Mark treated it as the most normal thing in the world, a person taking care of what was theirs. On the 3rd day, I woke up before the alarm. I lay there and listened to my own breathing in the dim light. Sunday, the deadline I had set. Part of me still expected a text from my mother, asking for another week for the kids, and promising to talk about everything later. None came. Today is the day you stand on your own porch, Mark said over breakfast. Not just in your head. For real. What if they shout? I asked. What if they cry? What if my mother says I am a terrible daughter? That will hurt, he said honestly. But it won't change the facts. The facts are your shield. You own the house. They treated you with contempt. You asked them to leave with notice. You are not doing something cruel. You are setting a boundary that should have existed years ago. At 5:30, we walked up the sandy lane together toward the house. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The sky was a pale gold, the sea behind us turning darker as the light faded. My blue front door stood ahead, my father's car still parked crookedly beside the fence. My parents were outside, near the steps, their suitcases lined up. My father's face was stiff, his jaw tight. My mother's eyes were red, whether from tears or anger, I could not tell. Olivia stood on the porch with her arms folded, Daniel behind her, the children already strapped into the car, watching with wide eyes. "So you're really doing this?" Olivia said as we approached. "Over 3 nights and a bruised ego." "I'm doing this over years of being used," I said, and I was surprised to hear no shake in my voice. "Over money you asked for and never paid back. Over being called a parasite in my own house in front of your children. Over you planning how to take something that is not yours because you thought I would be too scared to stop you." My mother stepped forward, her hands fluttering. "Grace, please," she said. "We are your family. We thought you wouldn't mind. The kids love it here. You know Olivia and Daniel are struggling with the mortgage. You have no children to think of. Can you not be generous about this one thing?" "I have been generous," I said. "With my money. With my time. With my silence. But this house is not one thing. It is the only place that is mine. And you told me there was no room for me in it." For a moment, there was only the sound of the wind and a playing card fluttering on the porch where one of the kids had dropped it. My father looked away, his mouth a hard line. Olivia's face was tight with fury. "You'll regret this," she said. "When we put you in a home one day and no one visits, you'll remember you chose a pile of wood over your own blood." The words were meant to cut. They did. But they also slid off something new in me, something that had grown over these 3 days of letters and proof and quiet coffee at a stranger's table. "If that day comes," I said, "at least I'll know I once chose myself." I looked straight at my parents. "You need to go now," I said. "The time I gave you is up. I won't argue. I won't shout. But if you're still here in 10 minutes, I will call the police and my lawyer."
"I mean that."
My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. My father picked up the first suitcase without a word. Olivia stared at me as if she had never seen me before. Finally, she turned on her heel and walked to the car, muttering under her breath. They drove away at 5:58 p.m., the tires crunching the sand and shells on the lane. When their car disappeared around the bend, the world suddenly seemed very quiet. I stood there, shaking, my hands empty and strange. Mark stayed a step behind me, not touching me, not leading, just there. "Your door," he said softly. I walked up the steps, the folder of papers under my arm, and took out my keys. The lock turned with a small, firm click. I stepped into my house. It smelled of cooking and perfume and the faint sour scent of too many people in too small a space. It did not matter. It was still mine. Later that evening, after opening windows to the sea air and straightening cushions and turning off the television that had been left blaring, I sat at my own kitchen table with a simple bowl of soup. My phone was full of unread messages I could not yet face. Outside, the waves rolled in and out, steady and indifferent. I thought of how much the past 3 days had cost me, money, tears, sleep. But I also thought of what they had bought, a clear line where there had only been blur, a key that finally felt like it belonged in my hand. I am still the woman who walked into her own house and was treated like a stranger. But now I am also the woman who walked back in and stayed.